Hail and well met, everybody. Welcome to Geek Thyself, a show by nerds, for nerds,
who love geeking out over random facts and esoteric trivia. My name is Heather.
I'm Russell.
And we'll be your hosts for this journey through the wondrous land of information. Hi everyone, welcome back to Geek Thyself. This week we're going to be talking about Harry Potter, but more specifically, since Russell and I are both big Harry Potter fans, we're going to be talking about some of the differences between the movies and the books.
Yes, notice we said some, because we spent the last few days doing research into how many changes there are, and boy howdy, there's so many changes.
Yeah, it's a very long list.
Unless we wanted a 2-hour episode on this, we're gonna omit some of the smaller changes and focus on some of the bigger, more overarching ones. Speaking of bigger and overarching ones, we should probably just mention the ones that were completely cut entirely, like some characters that are missing.
Yeah, that's true.
First character who comes up in pretty much every book except, I think... No, they're even in Deathly Hallows, is Peeves.
Yeah.
Peeves is the poltergeist, if you've never read the books, who pretty much just exists to mess with the students in harmless question mark ways.
Yeah, I mean, what the things he does are all reversible, but he's basically a prankster ghost who's constantly wreaking havoc throughout the school. And he's just sort of like a comedy relief type of character, and he's just completely gone in the movies. Not there at all.
Yes, although just an interesting fact is they did actually cast someone for Peeves in the films. They cast the late and great Rick Mayall, who is part of Monty Python, I think?
Yeah, right? I think so. I'd have to double check, but...
Yeah, so they did actually cast someone for the role, and there are some deleted scenes with them, but they decided that early in the filming that they weren't going to keep the character. So they were cut from those scenes, and that was that. Which is a bit of a shame, because the character was always fun in the books.
Yeah, he was always interesting. Although, and to be fair, for all of these things that we're going to be talking about, we're not saying that because it's not in the movie, it automatically made it bad or anything like that.
No.
It's just that, especially for anyone who's actually read the books and watched the movies, we all know just how much information and how densely packed it was in the books. And it's the kind of thing where they're just realistically, unless they made, especially some of the later books that were bigger, unless they made all of those books 2 movies, there's no way they were going to be able to get everything in. And even then, they wouldn't be able to get everything in. So they had to pick and choose. Not. They were going to have to.
Oh, yeah. No, so we're not saying that all the changes made the films bad.
No.
We will say that some of them do, but we'll get to those in a bit. For the most part, the first book is as accurate as you can expect from a really good adaptation, with the exception of classes, which are from the first book. We see a few classes introducing teachers and whatnot, and within the films we see basically one Defense Against the Dark Arts lesson, which introduces it every next teacher except for Prisoner of Azkaban, because Lupin was amazing and they focused more on him. So I'm a fan. But generally, a lot of the lessons from the books were cut out, those scenes being repurposed into other bits. Like, for example, Hagrid was the one who taught the class about Thestrals in the movie that's given to Luna to describe. Or they just completely omit whatever that conversation or relevance was. That's just how that worked.
Yeah.
Which you can understand because, again, you can't take up a 2-hour and 30-minute movie with 2 hours of classes.
No, it makes total sense. And there, to be fair, there are bits and pieces of some of the classes in a couple of movies here and there, but they definitely aren't as prominent as they are in the books, that's for sure.
Definitely
Oh, and the invisibility cloak was another one that was kind of it gets used in the movie. You do see the invisibility cloak in the movie, especially in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or if you're in the UK, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Especially,
I'm sorry, I just gotta say, I felt you immediately realize what you said. I'm like, it's like, well, I mean, you call it that. I don't call it that, but that's okay.
As soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, oh yeah, wait, it's got a different name in the UK. But, oh, there's my cat. But, regardless, dumb cat. He's protesting the lack of invisibility coat, clearly.
I mean, sure.
Yeah, so in the movies, it was used a little bit, but it was definitely more prominent in the books.
Yes, absolutely. So those are the sort of main topics that, like, universally got changed. The only thing that is sort of not mentioned much else past in, especially outside the books, is house points. House points don't really play much a big deal in any of the films past the Philosopher's Stone because they'd already won the cup. In fact, I don't believe there's another ceremony showing them winning the cup throughout the films.
You know, I don't think there is. I mean, to be fair, in the later movies, it's not needed because of all the chaos that's happening. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think it exists in any of the other movies. And in the books, winning the House Cup and getting all those points and everything was a big deal.
Massive deal, which is why when they lost 150 points for sneaking out of class, sneaking out at night, it was a massive deal. Yeah. Okay, so that kind of covers everything that's overarching in those kind of senses. So let's move on to Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or Sorcerer's Stone if you're elsewhere in the world.
Yeah.
The biggest first change is the fact that the film entirely skips everything before Harry is at Privet Drive, which includes Vernon Dursley doing his day at Grunnings, and essentially the whole first day of He Who Must Not Be Named being defeated and gone from the world, and every wizard in the wizarding world is celebrating. And doing a bad job of hiding it.
Yeah, they kind of skipped all of that, and to be perfectly honest, I get it. It makes sense. They had to skip through some of that. It wasn't necessary in order to set up the storyline. But they definitely left out some of it, like the fact that there were weird shooting stars because the wizards were celebrating so much and everything like that.
Yes, and of course, Mr. Dursley running into wizards and being called Muggle openly in conversation. People were very lax about it, and understandably, they had, as Dumbledore said, very little to celebrate for over 12 years. So, and then, so they start off within the first scene of dropping Harry off at the doorstep.
Let's see, what else is there? There's quite a few, like, random little details left out of the books that aren't necessarily needed.
Plot changing. Yeah, they're not plot altering.
No, they're not plot altering, so there's really no reason to go over them. Not in this episode. We're trying to get through all the books, is why we're skimming over some of these things. Just to be clear, we don't think that, if one of the changes made is something that you're like, ride or die, this is a problem, we apologize. It's just that we don't have time to cover every single one. One thing that was different, that it wasn't necessarily like plot altering, but I thought it was kind of interesting, was the fact that in the book, Hagrid instantly knows who Harry is. Like, he immediately knows which one is Harry. But in the movie, they had Hagrid mistake Dudley for Harry initially.
Also, within that whole sequence of receiving the letters, in the books they travel to many great places and the letters still follow them. Something that's omitted from that element, like they go to hotels and random places and those letters still show up, and that is why they end up on an island in a storm in the middle of summer.
Yeah, in the middle of nowhere.
Yes, also in the middle of nowhere.
Let's see. Oh, the Sorting Hat. They don't have him sing his song in the movie.
No, they don't, and it's a crying shame.
So for anyone who hasn't read the books, in the books, the Sorting Hat has a song, and he sings this song before he starts sorting all of the first years into their different houses. And I don't know the words to it, nor do I know what melody it's supposed to be. But basically, it's a song where he's describing the different houses and that he's going to sort everybody into them and this kind of thing. It's just a cute little moment that got left out of the film.
Yeah. Also, fun fact, it does happen in the second book, but Harry doesn't hear it because obviously they're late to the ceremony because of the Whomping... no, not the Whomping Willow. Yes, the Whomping Willow.
Yeah, the Whomping Willow in the car.
Yes, so they actually watch from outside and see the hat doing the song, but no, we don't actually hear what it is because they can't hear it.
Yeah.
So it's just a fun little fact. But again, that is omitted in the second film. But we're jumping a bit too far ahead. That was my bad.
Well, and there's little things about all of those scenes in the first year, especially that got slightly tweaked because they just were trying to make it flow better. For instance, in the books, Hagrid is the one who tells Harry about Slytherin's going bad, and he mentions it back in Diagon Alley. But in the film, it happens during the sorting ceremony, and Ron talks to him about it when Draco and them are getting sorted into Slytherin. Also, in the film, they kind of just hand-picked some characters to sort.
Yes, they don't do it in alphabetical order either.
Right, yeah. In the book, it was alphabetical, and she doesn't go through every single student, but she says it's one of those things where she's like, and then 3 more went to Slytherin, and then 3 went to Hufflepuff. Like, she does mention that other students are being sorted before they get to Harry Potter.
Yes, that's also something I suppose we should mention, is the class size is much, much smaller in the films than in the books. There's like 7 or 8 students from Gryffindor, when obviously in the book it's a full new semester of people, so it's like about 20 or 25 people, which obviously is understandable because having that many background characters you're not going to see again makes sense, but it is something that is omitted, those characters are, at least. Right.
They definitely focused in on the characters that they knew you were going to see again. Okay. Let's see. There's also little bits and pieces. The midnight duel between Harry and Malfoy that didn't happen in the first book.
Yes. Next thing I was going to say is Harry receives his Nimbus 2000 before his first training with Oliverwood in the book. But in the film, obviously, they make a big deal of it coming down with Owlpost. And it's opened at the table. So it was a small continuity error, but not continuity error, just they've shifted how he gets the broom. And there's not the scene afterwards with Draco kicking up a fuss about why he has the broom as well.
Yeah, there's little bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah.
Oh, that was one thing that was interesting but very tiny, is so if you've watched the movies, which I'm assuming you probably have if you're listening to this episode, everyone knows the whole, no, it's not Leviosa, it's Leviosa.
It's Leviosa. Yes.
So in the books, it's not actually Leviosa that's the problem, it's Wingardium. Yeah. In the books, it's different. So instead of it being the Leviosa, it's Wingardium that he was saying wrong. So it was supposed to be Wingardium Leviosa, as opposed to whatever he was doing.
I think it was Wingard, and wasn't saying the full word.
Ah, that's
if I
right.
remember correctly.
Oh, and there's the we might have just thought of the same thing. The Mirror of Erised.
Yes, we were both about to say it. Ron doesn't see the... Oh wait, we don't see Ron's perspective in the film. He is there one time with Harry, but we don't actually see anyone else's perspective other than Harry seeing his parents. And that's another thing, is he only just sees his parents, whereas in the book, it's a much more in-depth family grouping of everyone who could potentially be related to him, which he has no idea exists before that time.
Yeah. Yeah, in the book he sees his parents and his grandparents, but in the movie he just sees his parents. Another difference is
Yes.
that in the book, um, there's a lot more. There's more times that Harry goes back to look. In the movie, I think they only showed it twice.
Yes,
But
they did it twice. One with Ron coming back with him, and then one
yeah,
where Dumbledore finds him when he's sitting looking at it.
yeah,
Where he did it a few other times within the book.
yeah.
Oh, something else that we should have mentioned is that most other Quidditch matches are omitted from the rest of the books. Not the rest of the book. Rest
Movies.
of the first book. Yeah. While they do play occasionally, most of the matches don't get shown. Like the Hufflepuff and Gryffindor match, which Snape fights to preside over, or to referee, because of what happened to Harry falling off his broom in the last Quidditch match. Doesn't happen. That's not shown.
Yeah. And then there's little things like Nicholas Flamel, who actually made the Sorcerer's Stone and everything, or Philosopher's Stone. He gets mentioned briefly, but it's not as featured in the movie. Yeah. And then there's little bits and pieces like some of the changes to the Forbidden Forest. There was only one centaur. Ferenz is the only one who shows up, but in the books there's two others with him. Information, little bits and pieces about some of the things they encountered once they were going after the Sorcerer's Stone, Philosopher's Stone.
Yes.
I'm just going to say the stone from now on because that'll save me time.
Sure. Well, actually, that's something I was about to mention. Within the book, there were while in the films that some of the people protecting it are mentioned, most of the tasks involved in getting to the mirror or the stone were omitted. There's obviously the chess game, which is still there, Devil's Snare, and the broom, but Snape's potions puzzle isn't there. I don't think. No, because Hermione just looks after Ron because he got knocked out.
Yeah.
So that's why she's not there. And then there's the troll, which isn't there either. And I think there's also one more that got omitted. But the fact is that whole protection is lessened or sped up.
Yeah, in the book, it's specifically mentioned that, well, and I think they mention it in the movie, possibly, I'd have to double check. But I know in the book it's specifically mentioned that each professor created a trap.
Yes, it is mentioned that, I think it's said by Hagrid that some of the teachers are protecting it.
Yeah.
Because he's like, Snape is one of the teachers protecting the stone. He's not about to steal it.
Right. Yeah, it gets mentioned, and then he's like, oh, I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, I should not have said that.
And then, I mean, there's physical appearances that are different.
Yeah.
Which I know a lot of people are aware of already. I don't necessarily think that we need to go into those. No. I mean, a lot of them are minor. Like, Harry is supposed to have green eyes, and of course Daniel Radcliffe has blue.
But he reportedly had issues, like reacting badly to the green contacts that he had, so they obviously couldn't make him wear them because you're not going to damage your eyesight for them. That's ridiculous.
Right.
So yeah. So yeah, that's kind of most everything that's different within the first book.
Yeah.
The only thing that's I think taken it's not mentioned that Harry's obviously unconscious for the last game of the Quidditch World Cup, not World Cup, the House Cup. So yeah, that's pretty much all that's missed, and then there's still the big celebration of a house other than Slytherin winning the House Cup. That's still there.
Okay, book 2, Chamber of Secrets, and this one only had one name, so it saves me time. So, again, some of the differences, like the starting off at the beginning of the movie or the book, he's having a really bad birthday because he has to be back with the Dursleys and all this kind of stuff. A couple of minor changes. One is that in the book, Harry Potter was given the bigger bedroom in order to try to stop the Hogwarts letters from showing up. But in the movie, it's given to him as sort of an afterthought after he gets back from his first year at Hogwarts. Like, they're afraid of him, so they give him a better space to live in instead of the cupboard under the stairs. Yeah. Another big difference that has to do with a character who is recurring and makes me sad is Dobby. So in the book, there's a couple of changes that definitely affect certain things. Like, in the books, whenever Dobby disapparates, so whenever he appears or disappears, there's always a really loud crack sound. Yeah. But in the movie, they had it be quiet. They cut out that sound.
Yeah.
Which isn't, it's not major, but definitely there were a few moments in the book where Dobby appearing and disappearing and that loud cracking noise had an effect on what Harry had to do.
Yes, like, it gave Harry a signal for things to happen. As, like, especially later in the book where he's getting his arm regrown.
There's also there's a scene in the book that isn't in the movies about Harry getting a letter for violating the decree for the reasonable restriction of underage sorcery, which is what clues in the Dursleys that this rule exists.
Yes, because at this point, Harry hadn't mentioned to the Dursleys that he couldn't do magic outside of school.
And similarly, in the book, when they're rescuing Harry and taking him away from the Dursleys to get him back to the Burrow, there's little things that are different, like where the trunk is located and what noise it is that wakes up the Dursleys. For the most part, though, it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same scene, just it's played out a bit longer in the book, obviously. Yeah. But it gets over the same basic premises. Yeah. The only thing that really changes when they get back to the Burrow is there's no denoming in the film.
Yeah.
Which I can kind of understand that they don't want to, be showing to throw creatures over a hedge. Yeah. No, I can get behind that.
Might look bad.
But most of that is just kind of skipped over, like, before Harry is sent to get his school supplies. Something that isn't skipped over is Harry getting the name wrong of Diagon Alley using Floo powder, and ending up in Nocturne Alley. But what is skipped over is Harry seeing Lucius and Draco in Borgin and Bucks.
Yeah, one thing that's also been brought up is that in the book, and it happens in other spots too, but in the book, Mr. Weasley is the one who repairs Harry's glasses while they're out shopping instead of Hermione. So one of the things is that it's revealed in following books, but they don't know at the time, that the Ministry of Magic knows where magic is being used, but they don't actually know who's using it.
So it's more of a trust thing, but the reason that Harry got in trouble for it is because there's no other wizards at its residence, so there's no one else feasibly who it could be, which is why he got in trouble for Dobby's magic.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas Hermione didn't get in trouble for repairing his glasses on the train in the first book, because there would have been adult wizards on the train. And in the films, she doesn't get in trouble for repairing his glasses in Diagon Alley, because it's Diagon Alley. There's hundreds of adult wizards there. So there's no way they would know exactly who did it.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Another bit that's not super important, but is, like, something that is omitted is the fist fight between Arthur Weasley and Lucius Malfoy is cut from the film. Instead, they only exchange some rather intense words.
Yeah. There's a lot of little things, like who gets them out of the Whomping Willow and takes them to be, dealt with. And in the book, the Howler that Mrs. Weasley sends to Ron yelling at him is significantly longer and mentions Harry. In the film, they made it shorter for, it makes sense. And instead of mentioning Harry, it mentioned Ginny instead. There's also differences in how some of the information is delivered to everybody.
Yeah.
One thing is what mudblood means. In the books, gets explained to Hermione. She didn't actually know. Whereas in
No.
the film, they had her be aware of the term and get very upset, and Hagrid is the one who explains it to her instead of Ron.
Yeah, it explains it to Harry.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, because obviously Harry didn't know either, because both of them, they just don't. Something that was completely omitted is the Death Day party, which keeps Harry from being at the Halloween party. Instead, he's with Gilderoy Lockhart signing letters. Oh, yeah, because he had detention.
Fan letters.
For... Yes, because of the detention for arriving in the Ford Angler. That's it. So yeah, and then that's when he starts to have the first interaction with the basilisk through the walls.
Yes. Well, and that's when we start seeing more of the craziness too, like with the painting on the walls and things like that.
Yeah.
And there's definitely slight differences in some of the scenes between what happens in the book and what happens in the movie. Like in the book, it clearly says it's just red paint, but in the film it's blood. Some of the Quidditch scenes were slightly different, and some of the little things like how Hermione got the book to make the polyjuice potion was different. In the book, she got it by having Gilderoy Lockhart sign a note for her, and he basically just didn't even read it. He assumed she was asking for an autograph.
Yeah.
And signed off on it so that she could get into the restricted section. But in the movie, it was just in the regular section. So there's lots of little things like that where you see them being a little sneakier, I think, sometimes in the book. I think in the movie, possibly because they were trying to make them look more heroic and less like sneaky, mischievous children.
Yeah.
They seemed to omit some of those little things. It also might have just been easier, like, to smooth through the timeline that way. I'm not a script writer, so I don't know.
Well, yeah, like, adding an extra couple of scenes for that might have been good, but they could devote that time for elsewhere. Like, we're about to find out that a scene that is longer in the film than it is in the book, with the snitch. In the film, when Harry is first playing against Malfoy as Seeker, Draco never even sees the snitch because he's too busy mocking Harry, and he catches it from his ear. In the book, it's obviously a much extended scene with Malfoy following, because that makes it more interesting and more dynamic and stuff. So it's just making that action scene more actionable because it's on film.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Another thing that I definitely feel like was longer in the books than it was in the movie was the dueling club. Yeah, there was definitely a lot more in the book. And, I mean, one thing that's different, of course, is that in the book, when he is talking to the snake in parcel tongue, we know what he's saying, because it's translated for us, kind of like when he spoke to the snake at the zoo. Yes.
Yeah, and then there are just more spells taught within the dueling club. Within the first one, it's just the one spell, because then they have a big deal of Harry and Draco going at it.
Yeah, and then there's the polyjuice potion scene, again with little differences. Some of the differences have also to do with how the two characters looked, like the appearance of them versus what the appearance was described as in the book. So it's things like that.
Yeah.
And just little details that they didn't necessarily need to go into for the film, so they didn't. One interesting thing is that at some point during that book, I can't remember exactly where it's located, Harry asks the Sorting Hat whether or not he put him in the right house. One difference is that in the book, he has the hat on his head when he asks it, because he's only ever seen it talk when someone's wearing it, so he puts it on his head. Whereas in the film, he's looking at it and standing in front of it and talking to it directly.
Yeah. One of the bigger changes, which comes up a little bit throughout the later films, is that Polyjuice Potion, which is something they plan on taking to find out more about the Slytherins, doesn't change the voice of the person that's drinking it. For whatever reason, they have to imitate it. When within the books, that's something that does change as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, another big change in the book is that they never actually spend too much time in the Slytherin common room, because they're found
No.
in the hallway. They're never shown how to get in either. That's
Mm-hmm.
completely omitted. So yeah, it's just little things like that to speed along the plot. So yeah, so they just omitted that, and then we're just sitting in the common room, and then it admits them leaving when they run, just coming straight back into the bathroom which they drank the Polyjuice person in.
Mm-hmm. And there were some little differences also with the secret diary, the one that was Tom Riddle's diary. But
Yeah.
it's mostly small things that don't really
Mm-hmm.
affect the main information that you got. Things like who talked to Tom Riddle, not being Dumbledore, or what color the ink was, or, things like that. It's not. It's not anything that drastically changes the information you are getting. So I can understand why they might have made a few changes that just kind of sped things up a little.
Yes. Within the next sort of section, we have the book. The Chamber of Secrets is talked about by Professor Binns, a character who's completely omitted from all of the films, and that is instead handed over to Professor McGonagall, who goes over the story of the founders and the rumour that the Chamber of Secrets was put in by Salazar Slytherin.
Mm-hmm. And then there's little bits and pieces that are different about when they meet Aragog, the giant spider. Again, nothing like mind-blowingly different, nothing that's plot-changingly different. So, except that the car surprises them. The Ford Anglia showing up to save them is a surprise in the film, whereas in the book they actually saw it.
There's a couple changes with the teachers volunteering Lockhart for the basilisk. Just that it within the film it took place in the staff room, and Harry and Ron hiding in the wardrobe with his invisibility cloak. Again, not shown as much in the film. Within that case, it's just shown out in the hallway where the first and second writings were put up, and that's where they get. That's where that happens, and then from Harry and Ron going to the Lockhart's office and finding him packing is still the same.
Let's see. And then in the actual Chamber of Secrets, again, some more minor changes. Nothing mind-blowing, but like slight changes in the order of events. Or, like, for instance, when Moaning Myrtle offered to have Harry potentially share her bathroom, share her toilet, that when she did it was changed and things like that. But nothing that changes the effect of what happened.
Yeah. The only sort of main difference within getting into the chamber, the main sort of difference is just the chamber door is more of a carved entrance as opposed to like an actual metal door, which Harry used to unlock with Parseltongue.
Yeah, and there's little changes too, like during the actual fight with the basilisk, and finding out about the heir of Slytherin and all of that. So in the book, the fight is very quick.
Yes.
Like there is a fight, it does happen, and Harry wins, of course, but it's a much quicker fight. He's not like climbing over statues and jumping around and stuff like that. They sensationalized it a little bit for the movie, which it makes sense. I mean, they're gonna do that.
Yeah, it was a much more there was a lot more talking between Tom Riddle and Harry within the scene before the fight starts.
Oh, yeah, one thing, too, that's different in the fight scene is that in the book, Harry puts on the sorting hat and basically asks it for help.
And then gets knocked out by the sword nearly.
Yeah, whereas in the book, or excuse me, in the film, it just suddenly is there inside the sorting hat.
Yes, it just appears within it as it's on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Getting out of the chamber is completely skipped within the film. after Ginny wakes up, they just are out.
Yeah.
They're suddenly just flying up with forks. Like they don't go out and find Lockhart, who's now lost his memory and that kind of thing.
Yeah, because his own memory charm backfired on him.
Yep.
One thing that's different and definitely makes Mr. Malfoy, Lucius Malfoy, more evil appearing in the movies. Well, I mean, he's always evil.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, I know this one.
So in the book, after Dobby is freed, Lucius Malfoy threatens Harry, but he doesn't start a spell. He just threatens him. And Dobby tells him to leave. And
yes, he does.
house elves are very powerful, so he leaves. In the film, Lucius Malfoy very obviously starts to say Avada Kedavra before Dobby blasts him.
Yeah, which is quite a considerable jump in the level of lethality in that whole scene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now that we've covered 2 books, and we're very far through, we should jump into our break.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, okay. So we'll get onto our mid-roll break. So we'll be back in a minute.
Okay, everyone, so welcome to the mid-roll. Want to start off by talking about our amazing sponsors. So one of the sponsors here at Nerdsmith is World Anvil. You can go to worldanvil.com to find out more information, but they're an amazing world building and campaign management website. They're the most robust one that's online out there, and we know this because Logan, who is the DM for several shows here on the network, has searched through a lot of them to find the best one, and World Anvil by far is it. Also, they're just really amazing people, and you can get the starting level of a subscription basically to World Anvil for free. So you can access quite a few of their features for free without even having to pay anything, and then it's already amazing at that level, and then you can just keep adding to it. So it's just fantastic. You should definitely check out worldanvil.com.
Yes, please do. Also supporting the Nerdsmith Network and us are Die Hard Dice. Die Hard Dice create beautiful, stunning metal and polymer dice. They create their own molds for all of their dice, so if you see their dice, they're very instantly recognizable. They're gorgeously detailed. Their colors are amazing. They are consistently working on creating new designs with their Spellbinder series. They have which are dual colored and look gorgeous. They have even started making accessories for their dice, like with their Scroll of Rolling, which holds 2 full dice sets and rolls up to be a dice mat, which you can take on the go for any sort of DMs or game sessions that need to travel. It's really good. Their products are amazing. They're lovely people. And if you want to roll with the best, go to dieharddice.com. If you find anything that takes your fancy, great. You can use the code Geek Thyself to get 15% off your first or next order. Mm-hmm. That's 15. They are very kind to us. We love them very much. And who doesn't need more dice?
Right? You always need more dice. That's not even a question.
No, always need more dice.
Yes. And this week for Nerdsmith, we are talking about one of our newest, well, actually, it is our newest show to join the network, and that is Ukador. It's, for anyone who's interested in the spelling, it's Ukodor. They are a Twitch stream D&D actual play, and they're hilarious. And not to mention the fact that a lot of the twists and things the DM likes to do remind me a lot of some of the chaos and pain and emotional involvement that Logan has caused for us over the years, Russell.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Some of the twists are definitely interesting. So it's a fantastic show. All of them are amazing people. We can't talk about them enough. The best place to go to find some of their shows and find out more about them is their Twitch page. So it's twitch.tv/Ukador. Again, that's Ukodor. And we definitely recommend you go check them out.
I already like them because their name has UK in it, so...
Wow. Okay.
I'm sorry, I had to. I had to. Like, the way you said it just set my joke up so well. Yes, please check out Yukador. They're amazing.
Yes, definitely.
Right. Okay. And with that, we'll now get back into this monster of an episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so now we've covered the first two films, which, although it's said that you're not going to believe us, those are actually the ones with the least changes. From this point on, it gets a bit worse. Prisoner of Azkaban is still fairly accurate as the story goes, but this is where it starts to deviate even more from the books. So that's why we're stopping after this one, because oh boy, it's going to get bad.
Yeah.
Something that's different with Prisoner of Azkaban right from the get-go is in the film, Harry is casting spells at home as part of like homework, which is absolutely something he's not allowed to do. Which is why it's a bit weird that it's in the film and definitely not in the book. So, yeah. The film basically starts with Aunt Marge arriving for their stay. Although in the actual book, she's already been there a couple of days before they have the,
big blow up.
Big blow up. There you go. I was looking for a good way of saying it. Yeah. So that time is condensed. In the film, it's also exaggerated with her flying off over the county, whereas just in the book, she just is floating at the ceiling.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, definitely a difference. And there's lots of little things also, like Harry doesn't get any presents from his friends, and he doesn't find out about like the trip to Egypt until he gets to the Leaky Cauldron.
So yeah, speaking of getting to the Leaky Cauldron is the night bus, which he summons still in the film by accident. Doesn't know what he's doing with it, but it's still summoned. In the book, he goes by the name Neville Longbottom on the night bus. To keep his identity a secret, because again, there's the issue of doing magic outside of school.
Yeah. And then little things too, like in the book, the timeline is longer. He has 2 weeks of vacation left before he's supposed to go back to Hogwarts. But in the film, everything got sped up, and as soon as he's at the Leaky Cauldron, the next day he's at Hogwarts. So it's a much faster turnaround.
Yes. Then they're on the train. By this point, Harry does know about Sirius Black as well, which he learns about on the night bus.
Yes, about it in this book.
So yeah, what else changes? There's a small change in the Hagrid's first Care of Magical Creatures lesson shows a herd of hippogriffs in the book, whereas there's only Buckbeak in the actual lesson for the film. So it's assumed that there's only one hippogriff at Hogwarts, which would make sense because they're a bit dangerous. So
the boggart, some of the things that the boggart took the form of are slightly different in the book than they are in the movie.
Yeah.
For the most part, none of them are gigantic in terms of the any major changes that would affect storyline.
Yeah. A small change within the night Sirius Black tries to break into the Gryffindor common room is that Peeves is the one who reveals where the fat lady is to Professor Dumbledore, but obviously Peeves isn't in the film, so she comes back to a close Hogwarts portrait and tells Dumbledore herself. So yeah.
Yeah, and then in the book, they have a different person come take over for the fat lady for a while, but in the movie, we don't see that person.
No, we actually we do see the person who was taking over. We see Sir Cadogan.
That's what. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, we do actually see him in his own portrait, but we don't see that anyone replaces the fat lady.
Right.
Which is a bit interesting that they sort of showed the character and then didn't do anything with them, but that's fine.
Well, I think double checking my notes. Yeah, there's a deleted scene.
Oh, is there a deleted scene?
Yeah, there's a deleted scene where they did show him taking over, but they ended up not using it in the actual film.
That would make sense as to why you see him briefly. Okay. So yeah, that's that. Oh, something that is changed quite significantly is the firebolt within the Hufflepuff Gryffindor match, which Harry falls off his broom because of the Dementors, and his old broom smashes. There, Harry sent the firebolt for Christmas, which it doesn't happen in the film. That happens right at the end of the film. So there's no issue between Harry and Hermione about who sent the broom and if it's cursed or designed to hurt him. Because that is quite a big part about Harry not being able to use his firebolt for, I think it's a month and a half.
Something like that.
While it's examined.
To make sure there's no curses or anything on it.
Yeah, so that's skipped because obviously they are still both given by Sirius, but at the end of the film they know that he's a good man and there's no need to check it.
Right.
That's all.
The Patronus, I mean, no major changes.
No, he just is unsuccessful twice in the book, and in the film he's just unsuccessful once. That's all.
I mean, one thing that's different, that's kind of significant, I guess, is that in the book, the memory he uses to boost his Patronus is the memory of how happy he was when he found out he would be leaving the Dursleys.
Yeah, whereas in the book, it's...
In the movie.
In the movie, it's a memory of him listening to his parents, which he thinks is more of a dream than an actual memory, but it makes him happy enough to be able to conjure that. Yeah. The issue, the change with Snape's grudge, or the chapter, is that the situation for how the map is taken by Lupin is different. Within the book, it's taken immediately after he comes out of the one-eyed witch's hump, because Snape finds him there and takes him back to his office. In the film, Harry is out of bed after hours because he sees Peter Pettigrew's name on the Marauders map after learning about the fact that he was dead. So he went to look for him. So that's a fairly big change, but again, the map is still taken by Lupin at the end of that.
Oh, yeah, one thing that was interesting and different, and I'm okay with it, is that... So in the book, during all of the chaos that's happening, dealing with Crookshanks and Sirius and Wormtail and everything, during all of that, in the book, Ron is the one who's depicted as being more brave and heroic while stressed, whereas Hermione is the one who's nervous and scared. But in the movie, they flipped it and had...
they made Hermione the calm and collected one.
Yes.
Which, I'm fine with it as well. There's a longer talk about everything that happened with the Marauders is covered in the book, because, like we say, it doesn't happen in the film, which is a bit of a shame. So a lot of that backstory between them is cut out.
Yeah, they don't get revealed, and everything doesn't get straightened out until later in the books.
No, it doesn't. And even then, it's still only a little bit done. Oh, also, Lupin's connection to the Shrieking Shack and the Whomping Willow is not talked about in the movie. The Whomping Willow was put into the grounds for him to be able to be safe at the full moon. But that's not talked about.
No, it doesn't get brought up at all in the movie, just in the book. There's little things that get left out at the very end of the book, or that get changed slightly. Snape isn't the one who outs Lupin as a werewolf, and they don't it doesn't get mentioned in the film that Harry's Patronus was a stag.
No, it doesn't get mentioned. You still see the stag on screen, though.
Right. But it doesn't get mentioned, like, to the other people.
No.
Or
it's kept to himself.
Right. Also, at this point, you still don't know that Prongs was a stag, which was Harry's father, an unregistered animagus.
Which is still not explained. Like I said, the Marauders bit is missing from the book, from the film, and I feel like it would have helped tidy up some of this confusion. So, like I said, this is where the changes start to diverge a little, and sometimes the plot can suffer just a little bit from it, and the Marauders being left out, I think, does that a little bit.
Yeah. Not explaining it, because the thing is, there's some people out there, we're not on that list obviously, but there are some people out there who've never read the books. And if you've never read the books, then there's certain context and bits and pieces of detail that you're not going to get from just watching the movies. And I do think that in a few spots where they were trying to save time, that they left things out that they thought most people would know.
Yeah, and they kind of shot themselves in the foot just a little bit with it.
Yeah.
Because the stories aren't quite as tight, they're not quite as cohesive. And we're about to get into some other ones in, I assume, the next episode, because we're however long we're at. That is the first of potentially 2, maybe 3, we don't know, episodes covering Harry Potter, changes between the books and the movies. If you want to talk about that, feel free to reach out. Like I said, we've still got 4 other books and 5 other movies to do.
Yep, so that'll be next week. It's going to depend on how much time it takes us to get through them.
Yeah, a little bit. But thank you very much for listening. And with that, we'll get ready to wrap up. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Geek Thyself. Don't forget to check out all the other amazing content on the Nerdsmith Network. If you have any questions for either of us, you can get in contact with us on Twitter at geek_thyself.
You can also email us at geekthyself@nerdsmith.org. And please don't forget to go to iTunes and leave us a review, or also go anywhere you listen to your podcasts.
We'll be back next week with another informative and fun episode.
And until then, don't forget to geek thyself.
Torque, Goliath Barbarian.
I am Denahi, a tiefling sorcerer.
I am Barakabu, monk of the Honored Palm.
Jadobi, a half-elven druid. Welcome to the realms of Ukador.